we are live. I'm just gonna put a background music for like a minute or two, then we can start. So double checking. Facebook and YouTube are working. Good. Mal, isa siya ano la page of ano mal. Then start na.
Do I need to leave here to go to Facebook and share it?
Yeah, you can just do it and come back. Okay, well, we're going to start. Hello, everybody, wherever you follow us from, wherever you watch us from, wherever you listen to us from. My name is Ibrahim Asonko. Welcome back to Dialectic Space Podcast. Today is one of those episodes that we always do with our frequent guests that I always like to bring. Obviously, you know them, they are not new. Dr. Sulayman Njie, policy analyst and political scientist, Gambian based in the United States, in Texas. And also my good friend and brother, Omar Malmo Sambu, climate expert, and also Gambian from Brewfoot based here in the United States in New York. Both individuals are very opinionated about. Omar, why are you laughing? Because I mentioned Brewfoot. That's where you're from. I'm from Brikama, so me and Omar, we have that sort of relationship. It's always a back and forth. It's always a joking relationship, but I own him in this platform. And anytime I want Omar, we don't have to plan. I just have to call him and tell him, Omar, you need to come on this platform. That's how easy it is. But I'm happy to talk to both of you again. There's a lot happening in the Gambia. I just also want to tell our audiences that the reason you've not been seeing me so often is because last week I was moving from one place to another, and you know how challenging that could be sometimes. But you can see we're setting up a little studio in here, and it's going to get better. The quality is going to get better. The individuals or the nature of the conversations we are going to have is also going to get better as well. So this is just the beginning, but I indulge all of you to bear with me to continue these conversations, to continue these dialogues, because it's only through conversations that we're able to hear each other out and understand the intricacies or the nuances of what things that matter to us as Gambians, how we can dissect them and come to certain form of some form of consensus, because that's what this is about. So before going any further, I'd like to welcome my guests to introduce themselves, even though I have, but out of courtesy, I'll begin with Suleiman.
Hi, I'm Saul Njie. I mean, like Sonko said, from the Gambia. But yeah, you've probably seen me here many times. So I guess I'll pass it over to Dr. Sambu.
All right, thank you very much. Like many would know, my name is Omar Malmo Sambo, from Brewfoot, which I always like to mention, of course. A little complicate, but I'm based in New York City. Even though I'm climate expert, like Ibrahim would say, but I currently work as environment health and safety manager. So, environment is quite a very, very dynamic discipline. So, you kind of get expertise in multiple things. So, probably leaving the climate space and not really. I should have been in, Brazil, which is not happening. So I'm currently more into an occupational health and safety. and working for a multi-billion-dollar company, Jacobs, as project management consultants for the MTA on railway lines.
Thank you very
Of
much,
course,
Omar.
we found a green of Gambia, so I still have a lot of consultancy job in the Gambia, and some teaching to do probably sometime at the UTG. Yes, that's
Yes, yes.
primarily me.
Thank you very much. I mean, both these individuals are not new. We all know them, and I mean, Saul does a lot of writing and political commentary on Gambia. You know him already. He's a fierce critic of the political class or the political establishment, and various forms of political concepts. So it's always nice. I think people have been calling for me to host this. I've got several messages from people to say you need to bring Saul back and Malmo. So I'm happy to really do this with you. So just to lay the foundations to everybody to know that today we are going to talk about current affairs in the Gambia. And to host that conversation, we are going to begin with what we know happened last week in Sukuta when the ruling government of President Adama Barrow and his coalition partners, which is NPP and his partners, held a rally, which was an impressive rally to begin with. Let me just say that because there's tons of people that came out and NPP want to show or manifest that they are still a force to be reckoned with in light of all the problematic issues or the quality of life of Gambians or electricity or various forms of service that are affecting the people. They came out, they took center stage, and I mean, what stood out or conspicuous individuals and their sayings, I think really still are things that people are talking about, especially when the president said that nobody would be an exception, including the justice minister is going to be a campaign manager for the president. The constitution of the Gambia is clear in terms of whether the justice minister is able to, in fact, be so overtly involved in politics or campaigning as such. That's one. I think also the second part of it is the Barrow himself about Jammeh, for example, the return of Jammeh, and if Jammeh wants to come, he's welcome to come. And the fact that he's going back and forth is not going to do him any good. If he wants to come, he should just come. But most importantly is the part where the information minister, Dr. Ismail Assise, took a jab at his former student, Kemo Bojan, now the spokesperson for UNC. And also, he really made some very incendiary remarks against a lot of political figures in the Gambia, which I thought is highly divisive. However he does it, whatever are his motivations for doing it, I just think those are things that I think we could really rise above. But I was just curious as to what are you guys' observations so far, and what do you make of certain conduct from a ruling government in terms of how they treat their political adversaries? I'll begin with Saul.
Yeah, so I didn't watch the whole stump, but I did see some of it. Did see some snippets of it. I think with regards to ministers stumping for the president on the trail, from a political scientist point of view, that's troubling, right? Because especially for the justice minister, because there should be a separation of the attorney general from the government itself. But again, this is some of the limitations of politics and democracy, right? I mean, we see that in the United States today, where we have the president using the Justice Department to do certain things. Because I think, again, the problem with democracy is that it does not guarantee that you're going to have a good governance. It just shows you that democracy is going to give you the government that the majority wants. And then it's a tyranny of the majority. So that means the president then has a lot of power to decide to do things that some of us would look at him like, you're out of your mind. Why are you doing this? But there are no guardrails to stop the president. And I think this is not something new either, right? Because at the beginning of our country, before we became a republic, even after we became a republic, what you had was that the members of parliament were ministers. After we became a republic, that continued. So you're going to have ministers campaigning for the president because they were, in fact, themselves politicians, right? So it was part of our tradition up until, probably when Jammeh came. But then Jammeh also revamped it, started doing the same thing. But there was still, I would say, some separation, especially the justice ministry, which is a very different ministry, right? Because it does not, it operates, basically, this is the top cop in the country, right? So having the justice minister to stump for the president. I find that to be very highly problematic. But again, these are political appointees. They serve at the pleasure of the president, right? Do we have anything in the Constitution that delineates that? And if it does, how are you going to hold the president accountable? And I think at some point we're going to talk about the audit reports too, and then we'll talk about that a little bit more. But with Ismaila talking about Kemo, I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is the silly season of politics, right? And I think Kemo is a big boy. He has a he has a tough skin and a thick skin, and I think he's gonna absorb the blows and keep it moving, because what I see Ismaila doing there was basically baiting. It's baiting, UMC, because what you see is that UMC is trying to stay above the fray, right? So you have UDP people online saying the craziest things possible, and then of course you have Dr. Cisse basically going at somebody like Kemo, and I think that was a low blow. But again, that's politics. I mean, it comes with it, and I think Kemo will find a way to stay above the fray, and I hope UMC don't take the bait to go that low. Just stay high for now. There's no reason to fight. If they think that's the best strategy, that's fine. Especially with regards to UDP, I don't think they should push back at all. Just ignore. With the executive branch right now, especially with the president, that will score them some points if they keep pushing back. But again, what is the best strategy? I think they will have to decide that. But it comes to politics. I mean, it's a very nasty game, And
it's almost also scary in some way, because you remember Jammeh used to do this a lot, and I talked about this yesterday. Is Jammeh would command everybody in the civil service or public service to be loyal to him and to promote his re-election campaign. And if you don't fall in line, then what happens is, especially those in the security, for example, we've seen a lot of people lose their jobs, or even in the police, where Jammeh believes certain individuals in the top brass don't support him, they risk losing their jobs. So are we seeing a reincarnation of that in some way, shape, or form, with Barrow now standing up to basically make proclamation to say that you are either with me or you are out?
And I think that's the problem with executive powers, or executive overreach, right? What are the limitations? What laws do we have that could stop the president from doing that? I don't think we have any. That's the problem, right? So the president is a politician, and I think most politicians will think their own interests aligns with the national interest, right? So the president would keep on doing these things because he won his mandate. He wants what he wants to work. He really does, right? So whether that works or not, especially for me, the other politicians, the communications minister, whatever, I don't care. Those people can do whatever, but because those are just mouthpieces, right? But for the important ministers, right? The Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Interior, the Minister of what is it called? Just the Attorney General. Those are very problematic for those people to go on the trail. But again, they serve at the pleasure of the president, and these are some of the limitations of the democratic system, right? Because the checks and balances would have to come in at some point, right? Is the legislature going to hold the government accountable? Because those are the only ways we can hold the government accountable, right? Other than that, people have to go out and vote, basically. It's a really messy, democracy is a very messy system. And it's a very, very messy situation that we're in. And I don't think there's any guardrails right now to stop the president from, and I don't think many Gambians even have a problem with that, because they grew up seeing the same things, right? So I don't think most Gambians have a problem with ministers going to campaign for the president. From a political scientist point of view, I find it to be very problematic. But for the normal Gambian, I don't even think they care.
Omar, what do you say, or what's your observation, I should say, about Ismaila Cisse? I think whether you like it or not, we can all look at Ismaila. Hopefully, are you struggling to hear me, Omar? There is noise coming from one of the background. Something is echoing. Okay. Omar, I cannot hear you. Omar, are you with me? Yeah, Omar, you're echoing for some reason.
I think it's the Mamdani effect in New York. Oh, wow.
But yeah, I was also curious because, whether you like him or not, Ismaila is a political science. Well, he's a a political science professor from the University of the Gambia, and now communication minister for President Barrow. Now, I believe whether you like him or not, one could make the case that he's a very effective information minister, and he's
Absolutely.
doing exactly what is required of him in terms of propagating an image and also defending the record of this government, either rightfully or wrongfully. It depends on what side you're looking from. But I'm sure President Barrow will be sitting in his office and say that, yeah, this is one of my stallmates. Like, this guy is really doing God's work for me, right? But I was also like sort of curious to what extent is he going to go with this, right? Attacking every political adversary, calling them names, really going very passionate when it comes to these individuals, right? And that sort of bothers me a little bit. He even went further to the diplomatic territory when he made reference to the social and political situation in Senegal, who are our very strong ally. And so, how significant is it for him to sort of have some sort of guardrails or to draw the line between what he can and cannot do as information minister?
Again, he's going to do whatever he thinks is necessary to defend the interests of his state. Because the goal of every state is to protect the state. Let's not be romantic about it. Dr. Caesar understands this better than you and I. He's a political scientist, right? I've worked with him. He actually hired me in his department in the Masters in International Relations and Diplomacy program at the UTG, and I've worked with him. And that time, when he was with his political party, he had different opinions. Yeah, Citizens Alliance, CA. He had his different opinions, but today those opinions are not any different from what the president wants, right? And his job, to a certain extent, is to communicate what the government is doing to the larger public. And I think Ismail has been very effective. We can agree or disagree, but he is very effective in what he does, right? And yeah, I just don't, honestly, the silly season of politics, he understands this. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's like basically Dembo Bioforce going on the trail saying whatever he wanted to say about UDP. And this is what politicians do. He's a politician now. He's in the art of politics. He's not in the science of it anymore. He's practicing politics. This is no longer theoretical. It's practical, and that's what he's doing.
Omar, what's your observation from last weekend NPP rally with all the rhetoric and incendiary statements that came out of it? From the ruling government, and just the whole premise of everybody in the civil service or public service being part of NPP campaign.
First, let me establish that probably the president does not understand even the governance structures of our country. Because first, if you say, "Oh, Alcalos, I appoint all of you, you definitely got to run my campaign," you understand that in terms of leadership in communities, it's not structured in the way that government handpicks, even though government confirms. But this goes down to our traditional ruling systems, where some of these alcaloships are by inheritance by those who actually form these communities. So they are not necessarily picked by the presidency. They probably are approved by people who probably are governors or whatsoever. So the president does not in any way pick or appoint any alcalo. They might go through those approval processes and look at communities where the president or the government tries to impose on those communities. You often see that communities would always revolt and outrightly reject, because those traditional ruling structures are very much considered in our rural communities or in our native local communities. Now, in short, Gambia exists. Ruling systems have existed long before the Gambia became an independent state. So this is something that he needed to put in his mind, that, oh no, I don't really handpick alcalos to even claim that they must actually run my campaign. But most of the time, this is what happens. They use politics to actually kind of tie people together.
Omar, we're struggling to hear you. Omar, can you hear me? I think your phone is a Bruford mobile phone, or that the entire community of Bruford are calling you, but we can't hear you.
Getting a lot of calls coming in and out. You can't hear me.
Yeah, we're still struggling. But I can.
No, I can actually pick up from where he stopped, right?
Yeah.
And I think And what Omar is saying is also rooted in the whole land issue, right? That we have in like Combo, right? Where the government is taking people's lands. And but those lands and the tenure of those lands existed well before the establishment of the Gambian state, right? And yeah, some alcaloships, I would say for the most part, the president doesn't have a say, but Jammeh was able to do that. Let's say, for example, in Tujarang, he invented Badakunku. Badakunku really was part of Tujarang, right? So he decided to have this whole alcalo there. And but no, Omar is right. The president, there's some ways. I don't think it would be fair to say he doesn't know. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He just assumes that he can do whatever he wants. And I think those are two different things because he understands the alcalo system is mostly likely through inheritance. I would say
Yeah.
for the most part, it's through inheritance. And those systems predate the current Gambian state.
Yeah.
For the chieftaincies, those are different because those are more colonial systems, right? But, you know, again, it's politics, and this is what happens in silly season politics, and politicians say to provoke conversation, I guess.
I mean, I'm going to go on a tangent here a little bit. He also did talk about, the return of former President Jammeh, which is a somewhat hot topic right now in the Gambia because of, it's Jammeh. He's still the leader of one half of APRC, and the other half of APRC is in cahoots with the president and part of the NPP. I mean, the NPP coalition for 2026 presidential elections. Uh, and I was just curious in terms of picking your brain on what is the significance of that in terms of the president of the country standing up to say that, look, if you want to come to the country, you come. Basically emphasizing that we have the power of the state and we are going to do the needful when you come to Gambia. We've never seen that before.
Yeah, but we've never seen anybody like Jammeh before either, right? But I think the problem for Barrow is Jammeh is the destabilizing force in the Gambia.
Omar, can you mute 1 second? You still that we're getting a lot of reception from your end, interference. Yes, Suleiman, go ahead.
Jammeh is a destabilizing force, politically and security-wise, right? How can you even prosecute Jammeh in the Gambia, like in that environment? I mean, the security. I mean, I'm just trying to think about it, right? Politically, Jammeh is a big threat to Barrow. If Jammeh runs for the presidency, Barrow is going to have a lot of trouble. That's just the reality. I think we forget this all the time. Jammeh lost by 18,000 votes to a coalition. And that coalition now, part of it is part of the Barrow government. A lot of Gambians are disillusioned. They are somehow nostalgic about going back to the era of Jammeh, right? The same way with what happened to Trump. We totally forget what happened in 2020 and 2021 when he left, right? Because the mind want to move forward because people are now saying that the Jammeh era was great. To some of those people, they have their reason for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem for Barrow is Barrow would not want Jammeh in the Gambia. He would not. Because number one, he's going to destabilize the country. And if Jammeh comes to the Gambia, the persecution of Jammeh is going to be so toxic to Barrow himself, like his political career. But the security, how are you even going to guarantee security for Jammeh? You're going to take him to mile two? Jammeh has loyalists. You saw what happened in Fonyi when he was speaking on the microphone, whatever, the radio, whatever, WhatsApp or whatever. And people literally, okay, look at the parliamentary election. The non-alliance won Fonyi for the most part. Why? Because of the same stuff, because of Jammeh. Jammeh actually has loyalists. We look at this from the point of the TRRC and Jammeh's human rights abuses and all that stuff. The human mind really moves on. Rightly or wrongly, it happens. And in the case of Jammeh, I would say, if Jammeh comes and run for the presidency from jail, wherever he's going to run for office, Barrow is going to be in a lot of hurt. And I don't think Barrow would want Jammeh in the Gambia. But if Jammeh comes to the Gambia, Barrow, they don't have any choice but to charge him. They have to prosecute him. But that's going to be such a fiasco. Imagine Jammeh going to the High Court in Banjul for hearings. The concept of it, the idea of Jammeh in Gambia is so destabilizing. I don't think we have actually reckoned with it yet. Right?
Yeah.
Because we are all like, oh, he broke the law, he killed all these people, let's prosecute him. In the Gambia, how are you even going to guarantee that?
Yeah.
He also hurt a lot of families. You think those people are just going to just stand around and watch him do whatever he want to do? So that means the government would have to expend a lot of resources to just defend, to protect that. They're not going to take him to mile two. That would be insane. So what are they going to do? House arrest? And then he's going to have all of his devotees. It's like he has a cult. They're all going to be there every day for him. So, but Jammeh is such a. I don't think Jammeh is crazy enough to come to the Gambia. But if he does, if he want to destabilize the country, he would, and that would really destabilize the country.
And that's my question too, is like really to understand how prepared is the current government of Barrow after since what 2017, 2016, since Jammeh left, right until now. Like, yes, this justice process takes a long while, right? And Jammeh is a former president, and he went to a country that is not within the agreement of the Rome Statute, for example. So even international law in that respect would be hard to hold Jammeh accountable for some of the allegations that have been levied against him. Right? But in terms of at state level, how prepared are they even, you know, in dealing with the Jammeh situation in light of Jammeh's argument that he's going to return to the Gambia? I don't think the state is prepared. One. Two, the state is not also prepared to institute plans in terms of our reconciliatory processes between individuals. I mean, following the end of the TRIC, that's one of the recommendations too. We have an ongoing reparations process, but that in itself is not enough. There has to be a bigger social cohesive mechanisms that is going to deal with the real issues that underline why we in fact had Jammeh in the first place, between say the victims, for example, but also individuals that still hold so dear the fact that Jammeh is their political godfather. Jammeh is the one that they simply identify with. That process has not been taking place, especially since the end of the TRRC process. So I do feel like the government is not really looking into these things. It's just very reactive. They are not proactive. There's not any planning going on in terms of, like dealing with this, which seems to me to be an existential national problem. And they must treat it as such. So for me, when I look at it, that's from that angle that I'm looking. I'm like, yo, Jammeh should be held accountable, but also like who is going to do it? Like you said, we're not going to put Jammeh in mile two. That's not going to happen. Every day, the state is going to spend all of its resources to clamp down on and demonstrations all over the country. It's just not going to happen. Where are we going to take him? What airport is Jammeh going to land in? Are we going to take him to the International Criminal Court? There is no arrest. Warrant for Jammeh, for example. Like, what?
But I don't even think his crimes amount to the ICC stuff. I think it's going to be really hard to take that to the ICC. Maybe with the Ghanaian issue, but beyond that, I don't think his crimes amount to the ICC. And the only reason the ICC would have to step in is if we can prosecute him in the Gambia, right? But the Gambian state legally can prosecute Jammeh, right?
If for example, there's a plausible case to be made that crimes against humanity have been committed, and the principle of universality can be invoked, for example, right? And so I think there is an argument to be made that Gambia could have some form of hybrid court, or ECOWAS, for example, could have a standing to hold them accountable in some shape, way, or form. But we've not seen so far at the level of the International Criminal Court to sort of come out to say, oh, there's an arrest warrant for this guy. I do think that is still very broad. That is not like an arrest warrant. That is also not like in terms of to definitively say that his crimes that he has committed amounts to, for example, crimes against humanity under the Rome Statute. Would not say, but I think there is a plausible case to be made. That's what I wanted to put out.
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a plausible case, especially with the Ghanaian migrants, right? I think that's a real and I think that's where ECOWAS will come into play as well. But the problem is the Barrow government, you have to understand in 2021, Barrow was willing to move on. So he absorbed a lot of the Jammeh people. He actually extended an olive branch, right? He extended an olive branch to Jammeh, right? He wanted to have a coalition with Jammeh. It was Jammeh who didn't want it. He picked Mama Kande, right? So for Barrow, their assumption was Jammeh will just move on, right? He will not immerse in the politics the way he is now, right? That was the assumption. So that's why I look at the state. The Gambian state is a continuum. It's not like Jammeh stopped and then the Gambian state stopped existing as is, right? The people who were in the Jammeh government, some of those people have already been rehabilitated. They are now part of the system. So there are crimes that Jammeh commit, but Jammeh had enablers who committed these crimes. And those people are now embedded and part of the system and the structure of government we have. So the state cannot prosecute itself, and it would not. So what's going to happen? They can pinpoint that Jammeh is the problem. But up until now, you didn't hear Barrow say anything negative about Jammeh. He did not, at least since he formed a coalition with APRC. But now Jammeh is a threat. It's different from Jammeh saying, vote for Mama Kane. That's one thing. To Jammeh saying, I'm going to come back home. That's a whole different ball game altogether. And I don't think they have any plans, or they were even prepared to have Jammeh back in the Gambia. I don't think so. I think these are reactive because they never took him that seriously, right? Because they never saw the point why they should actually go to that level. My hope is they're planning for it now, because Jammeh is we all know Jammeh. He's a character, and he knows the power he holds. He has a lot of power still. Let's not fool ourselves. He still has a lot of power. He still has a constituency, and we'll be surprised if we run a poll. You run a poll in the Gambia today for who could be president. We put Jammeh there. You'll be surprised how many % of the support he's going to get in the country, right? So, again, the government cannot prosecute itself, because what the government did was basically continue with some of those Jammeh people, some of those people who were actually adversely mentioned in both the Jammeh Commission and the TRRC. They're serving in this government. Some of them served and left, but some of them are still in this government. The security system, the security apparatus, right, which is the Interior and the Ministry of Defense, all of those entities, it's the same people who are still there. Yeah. So, and I wouldn't say many of them are loyal to Jammeh, but I would say some of them could be. And Jammeh being in Gambia would be so destabilizing. I don't even think we're ready for it. I don't think so. And we need to start thinking about it, because it could be a reality. Where is he going to land? I have no idea. Right? Because he's not going to fly into the Gambia, because the Gambia would not let him in, because they have the power to do that, right? So where is he going to go? How is he going to get into the country? That's a whole different question altogether,
Well, Kanilai is very close to Casamas too, and
sure.
For me, that's the only place I sort of think about sometimes. It's just like we have very, very.
You said it's close to Casamas?
Yes.
Yeah, their bathrooms are in Casamas. What are you
That's what I'm saying. Like our borders are very permeable to intrusions from outsiders, right? I mean, we know this from when Jammeh was president himself, in terms of the allegations of him and his involvement with like rebel forces in different parts of that region. Right. But you could literally just walk past some parts of Gambia and you're in Senegal. So Jammeh could technically come out from anywhere, and he is in Gambia. And who knows if he's in Gambia, what his intentions are going to be, right? And so that's a major national security issue that I hope that the government is listening and is really taking this very seriously, because, we love that country. We all are from that country. We value deeply we brag a lot about our peace. And so to see a country where one individual who, by the way, is the former president of the Gambia, and arguably the most powerful person that we've had in a very long time in that country, to just deal with it as though, we just minimize the risk that it poses to our national security, I think is insane. But to shift on, just to say that we had Omar Malmo, I think he was experiencing technical difficulties. So I'm going to have a specific session with Malmo, but Sol and I will crack on. And I want to pick your brain again on another issue, the United Movement for Change, right? We know this. We see obviously that they're doing political conversations and engagements in various parts of our community. We also know for sure that Yankuba Dabo of United Democratic Party, chairman of Brikama Area Council, through some of his Facebook posting, has also been sort of taking subliminal digs at Talib Ahmed Bensouda and the UMC in terms of comparing and contrasting what their achievements are, among other things. Now, I'm just interested to hear your perspective about, beyond, say, 2026, what the political environment may even look like in terms of, say, a Talib versus Yankuba Dabo going to 2031, because it seems like they're laying the groundwork. And somebody also is making the case that I think UDP is not even talking about Dabo anymore. All they're talking about is Talib Ahmed Bensouda and Yankuba Dabo. That they're literally making the case for replacing Dabo eventually before the election comes in 2026. I don't know how true that is, but there's a lot of goodwill support for Yankuba Dabo on social media. And it seems like they're putting him head to head with Talib Ahmed Bensouda, which is okay, by the way. But I was just curious, in terms of your analysis, what do you see?
Yeah, I think it's fair game for Youngs to compare his achievements in Birkama with Talib. I mean, it's politics, right? It's you're like, hey, I'm the best person. Look at me. When I, and but again, this is all politics, right? I think UDP knows they're gonna lose with Ousainou Darboe. They know that. I mean, I don't even think anybody has to tell them that. They know they're gonna lose with Ousainou Darboe. He's a losing candidate. Youngs could be a different candidate, but we have to see that, right? I don't think he has shown the discipline to, on a personal level, he's a great guy. But, I think the UDP tactic is very exclusionary. And I don't even think they understand. Sometimes I don't understand what their game plan is. Sometimes I feel like they just want to lose the presidency. Because politics is about addition, not subtraction. You try to bring people to your camp. I haven't seen anything from UDP, especially since Talib, even before Talib left, right? That UDP is actually interested in bringing people to their camp. The moment you all have a problem, they don't care. They go rogue. They don't even care about destroying your life if they can, right? So it's really hard to reconcile those two things, right? Because they're not really their idea of politics. I think because again, UDP was born out of resistance in '96. It was out of resistance. The party existed as a resilient and resistant movement to the government. And then they took power. They had no idea what to do with it. They had no clue. They had no idea because they were so used to being in the opposition that they didn't know what to do with it. And now being in opposition again, I feel like their posture is always the same. They treat politics the same way as they were treating it in pre-2016. We're in a whole different world. Barrow is not Jammeh. Talib Bensouda is running a different kind of politics. He is acting like the adult here, and UDP are just throwing tantrums. Anybody who challenges UDP, you get a barrage of insults. And I think at this point, you can even differentiate Ousainou Darboe from the crazies. You really cannot, because he can come out any day and told those people they don't belong to the party. He hasn't done that. Those people are still there. Some of them are actually in office, as either nominated or elected members, saying things that really don't make any sense. So UDP, so people ask me, they're like, UDP is not a tribalist party, it's not a nativist party. I'm like, that's nonsense. It's like this saying that Mitt Romney is part of the Republican Party doesn't mean the Republican Party is not a white supremacist party. I mean, this is fact. The coalition of UDP includes a lot of nativists. It's only UDP, actually, for the most part, whose supporters are involved in nativist stuff. You go against them, you're not Gambian. As though you don't even need to be born in the Gambia to be Gambian, by the way. You don't. We saw what happened in New York the other day. Mandani became American citizen in 2018, bro. 2018. Now he's the mayor of the biggest city in these United States. Whereas UDP is arguing against people whose great-great-great-great-grandparents were even born in what is today Gambia or Senegal. And people who were born in the Gambia. And they're actually trying to destroy their lives too. That doesn't appeal to most Gambian because that scares people away from you. They will not engage you, stay the hell away from you, and let you self-destruct. And I feel like they're on the way to a kamikaze mission. They're self-destructing their party.
And to that point, Saul, and also you can tell me what you think, is that's part of my struggle too, is when you make this case, which you did very brilliantly, by the way, in terms of just how members of that party engage in this sense of ethno-nationalistic politics to the exclusion of like other tribes or groups in the Gambia, because they do. There are some individuals that do it in that party. And so the party, mostly individuals in the party, will always come out to tell you that you are wrong sampling just few individuals, few rotten apples, to make to paint this picture of the party to be completely ethno-nationalist. I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. I said, but if there's always individuals who are coming out of the party to do this, and there is no party policy or party admonishment or condemnation from the leadership of the party to condemn these individuals, except what you see is these individuals are being celebrated, right? And I say this to contextualize this. Say, for example, Nanama, what he did, absolutely abhorrent, in terms of, like that the insult that he did, because he was attacked too. You know, like all that back and forth, whatever it is unacceptable. I think insults should not be condoned. But what he received, so much so that these individuals want him to lose his job and means of sustenance, it was beyond me. I was so perturbed by the idea that because I say something so unnice or unsavory about a politician, I should lose my means of livelihood because of that. That is problematic.
It is problematic, and they have no problems with it. And again, the UDP coalition is a coalition of actually ethno-nationalist nativists. No political party in the Gambia has nativist instincts like that. It's only UDP who does. The question is why? The question is, where are the grown-ups in the party? Where are the adults? Where are they? And this is where I have a problem with the UDP executive and these adults. When you saw what was happening online between Talib and Youngs, you all are grown up. Where are the grown-ups? Sit them down. They were all within the party. They were all part of the party. Nobody was there to sit them down to come to a consensus. We're from the Gambia.
We're from. Work. They said they didn't work out.
Okay, then what was the issue? So that means that UDP itself is not a party that is viable. If they cannot keep the people within the party, and they've been doing this consistently since Barrow came. They lost Barrow, they lost Talib, now they're left with Youngs, and who else? Who else? Who is Youngs going to appeal to? I'm not saying Youngs is not a viable candidate. I'm not saying that. But their approach right now, that's not bringing anyone to the party. That's an activist approach. They're activists. They're literally activists. That's what they're doing. They're telling you, we got you this freedom. You should thank us for it. And then you should give us the presidency. No, nobody owes you that. And nobody even asked you to do that. You're a political party. Political parties are interest groups. So that's why when they say Talib, basically, a Jamfale and all, I'm like, that's nonsense. Political parties are vehicles. This is not a religion. They are vehicles to get to wherever you need to get to. Any ambitious person would want to be attached to a political party that's going to take them somewhere else. Mm-hmm. That's how politics work. Talib knows that he could not get to the presidency through UDP. He had to leave. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason why they should be debasing themselves. And again, the grown-ups in the UDP could easily come up and kick these people out of the party and say, we don't condone this. We don't want these people in our party. We don't want any nativists in our party. They would not do it. They would not. They don't have any problems with it. That's how I see it now. I don't think Ousainou Darboe is any different from those people because he could stop it now. He could, but he did not. And they refused to do it.
You think we could ever have a situation where they would slide in Youngs and Ousainou is going to... Because clearly what we know for a fact is there are conversations that used to happen between all of these individuals, between Talib and the various leaders of the party, that Ousainou is not electable. He's not going to... The chances are very slim for him for 2026. And so did you ever, even remote possibility of situation where Darboe steps aside and Youngs comes to the fore?
I don't know. Anything is possible in politics. You can never say never, right? But Youngs might be a better appealing candidate than Darboe. Honestly, Darboe is damaged goods. Barrow is excited that Darboe is running again. He can't, he's just probably over the moon, right? Darboe is not winning the presidency. Anybody who tells you that they're fooling themselves, right? Youngs can excite people. Darboe cannot. Darboe really cannot. Darboe has a core base, which we know for a fact. But he's not going to build upon that base. Youngs actually has the chance to do that. But Darboe doesn't. You know what I mean, right? So, and again, if they're serious about winning, they need to consider all their options. Based on what I've seen, putting Ousainou Darboe up there was the biggest mistake, or biggest blunder. There's no reason to put Ousainou, the guy has never won an election in his life. He's never considered to a defeat ever. That's why, when political parties lose elections, they do a postmortem. They come back and sit down and think, why did we lose? And then try to fix that. UDP doesn't do that. They lose with Darboe, they're like, it's cheating. So they already convinced themselves that the only reason they're losing the election is because they're cheating them. That's why they lose. So that's why they would never accept this premise. That's why they would never, ever get rid of Darboe, because they believe that somehow, if Gambians vote, they will vote for Darboe, but because Barrow is rigging the election, Jammeh rigged the elections. I'm not saying Jammeh didn't rig some elections. No, that's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But we don't have any proof that Dabo would have won any of those elections either. Based on the numbers, Dabo is not electable in the country. And the last election should have sent a big message. Barrow won by 200,000 votes. That's not a small number.
Yeah.
That's massive, right? In Gambian politics, politicians usually, even Jammeh's Jawara style, they did not have those blowouts, right? It's usually like 51%, 52%. Yeah. Of course, Jammeh, there were some elections when UDP was, you have NAD, UDP was literally whatever party at some point. Jammeh was able to like get some of those numbers. Maybe he cheated in some of those, right? But Dabo is not an electable candidate. He's really not. He's damaged goods. And if they take him, if he's their candidate for 2026, which he is now, he could lose. And I think young Dabo doesn't have a ceiling, just like Talib, right? They don't have a ceiling. These people can rise up to whatever, right? They can excite people. People will say, okay, this is it. Because change is good. There's nothing wrong with change. And I think young Dabo might be a better candidate. I don't know. That we need to see the polling on that, because right now we don't have any polling where Young is a viable candidate. But even if he does, I will expect him to adjust his tone online a little bit. Again, I like Youngs personally, but sometimes I cannot reconcile some of the comments that I see online. But again, these are politicians, and it's about fighting, man.
Yeah, and also, I think an idea of an alternative candidate to Usainu Dawo, for me, I think would excite people. I think a lot of people that perhaps even those that left the party recently, the argument that they make is they want a party that could win. The purpose of political parties is to get as much aggregate of votes as possible, as much as possible. But if you're not doing that for such a long time, then it begs the question, why are you in existence? It's almost as if they are your party, the PDOIS, that have morphed into something that is the polar opposite for why they're in existence, right? So I think a candidate like Yankuba, for sure, and I'm from Brikama, I speak to a lot of people, they actually really appreciate the work that he's been doing, especially in respect to curbing corruption. You can make a case for, like how he conducts himself, and still that's something that some people look at as saying that, hey, we like his confidence, we like his manner of politics, we like the way he is unapologetic about how he wishes to carry himself. But I do think that even all of that, whatever Youngs bring with him, that in itself could be something different to that what Dawo brings,
Oh, without a doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, I look at that angle too, to say that, look, it doesn't even have to, Yankuba doesn't have to be your ideal sort of Usainu Dabo.
No, actually, when you think about it now, right, they have nothing to lose.
Yes.
They have nothing to lose, because Dabo is a losing candidate. I think they'll be wise to take that risk. Dabo is not winning. I don't think we're even I'm not mentioning words about that. I'm not. Dabo is not winning this election. He's not. If he couldn't win in 2021, you think he's going to win today with the fractured party? And I think there might even be a better chance. And again, this might be outlandish for them to have some kind of a coalition between UDP and UMC with Talib and maybe Youngs. They will have to come together and have that conversation. Usainu Dabo, any coalition, Usainu Dabo has to lead that. He has to, right? Right. He's not going to be second fiddle to anybody, right? And I think maybe this would serve as this could be an opportunity where Usainu Dabo will act as the adult here, as the grown-up, and bring people like his fractions of his party together to have a coalition. I hope so. I genuinely do, because I think having a fractured coalition, a fractured opposition, does not help. For me, I believe that a viable and strong opposition is essential in any democratic process and any democratic system. We don't have a strong opposition in Gambia. We have a reactionary opposition party for the most part. The other ones is just noise. Mama Kande's party, Doi, these are not really serious. They're not really threatening Barrow's power. They're really not, right? Only UDP can, but I don't think UDP is disciplined enough to do that, because instead of adding more people, they're actually alienating a lot of people. Yeah. I think they really need to start listening to, because elections, people, nobody owes you a vote. You have to convince people. It's about persuasion. They don't even do that, and I don't understand that. So that's why I just assume they're just activists. They believe in the righteousness of their cause. But what is that cause today? In Jammeh's era, we know what that cause was.
Yeah.
Against Barrow, they're just telling, give us the power to do what exactly?
Yeah. Anyway, we can go over and over again
Yeah, I
about
have like 10 minutes and then I
you
have to
know,
dash.
yeah. No, I know, I know. No, we're going to wrap up with. I was just quickly going to say that, you know, even that, like conversations like this, what it receives is just incendiary response and comments from a large section of those. Anytime, just the ability to allow divergent opinions, even if those opinions do not sound or they don't come across to you the way you would ordinarily want other people to speak about your party. It's unfortunate, but I hope that they take heed of some of these really rudimentary stuff about our politics and just be more accommodating and more accepting and more divergent, because it's extremely important. But the final issue, so I wanted you to also touch on would be, I don't know if you've seen, but the former manager of Gambia Ports Authority, I believe, is finally one of the very few individuals in our political history in the Gambia who has been indicted for corruption charges. I think he's been alleged for, I think, to have mismanaged or been involved in about 20 million Gambian dollars, Gambian dollars resource, some scandal somewhere from Gambian Ports Authority that has been reported. So finally, but the funny part of it is this dude apparently is in Dakar, and is alleged to be there for some casual leave or has some medical emergency or whatever. But I thought that was really funny. You release an indictment against this guy, and then all of a sudden the guy is not in Gambia, is in Senegal, and uh, all of these, like sort of auditing reports that are coming out,
Mhm.
to indict the government on corruption allegations, for example. And you have this, I think the first person I know was Dr. Jamba, the former, I think, the permanent secretary
Is it
of,
Banja? Banja?
yes, Banja, yes, of fisheries. And then this dude too, right? And we have the coming into place of the Anti-Corruption Commission. But on top of that too, the government of the Gambia also presented their 2026, appropriation bill to the National Assembly for next year's budget. And I was just curious as to what do you make of all of these things that keep happening. One, on corruption, but also what our National Assembly members should really look for in terms of accountability for just reckless spending by the government for a country that don't have much. And you always say that we don't even have anything, and we just keep spending. For a country that don't have much, we spend so much money on just wasteful stuff,
Right.
and that's really always bothering to me. But let me pick what you think about
Yeah,
it.
I haven't read the new Gambian news today, so I cannot comment on that because I really don't know what the charges are about and all that stuff. So I need to look into that. But with regards to the budget, there are a lot of troubling things in that budget, and I think if I don't know if you remember, but in 2017, Barrow's first budget, I broke it down. I had a whole article about it, where the money goes and all that stuff. That year in 2017, 20% of our budget goes towards the servicing of our debt. Now it's 30%. That's 30% now. That's not sustainable. And I
Yeah.
thought it was not even sustainable back then. It's more obvious today that it's not sustainable, right? If you look at it, we're spending billion dollars rather, between the state house and the vice president's office. For what exactly? For what exactly?
2026 elections.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, that's immoral. There's no justification for that. The bureau, the state house and the VP's office, these are administrative offices. These are administrative. Literally, they're just paper pushers. I'm sorry. There's no justification for that kind of spending, given the our problems we have. For example, if you look at the budget that is allocated to employment and so, that's $2 billion. $2 billion. Are we out of our minds? Out of our $36 billion in budget, that's how much we allocate into jobs. And if you want to expand the tax base, you have to find a way to create jobs. That also, because if you have a larger tax base, you take less debt. It's
Yeah.
just simple economics. It's simple math. It's not even complicated. But we're giving the president's office and the vice president. Why do we even have to have a budget like that for the vice president's office? The president is a ceremonial position. We cannot even justify the spending. And I hope we will have an opposition that can propose an alternative to what the executive is doing. Because if not, it's just noise.
Yeah.
if the opposition cannot just come and say, we're against this, okay, what are you proposing? What is your alternative to this? What would you have done? And I think this is where the opposition should actually have people who understand these things, who are serious about these things, to speak for them on these issues. They should have a shadow kind of government. Like, we have people, a technocrat for this. We have a technocrat for infrastructure. We have a technocrat for communication. We have a technocrat for education. Have all of these people ready to propose an alternative. There is none. Yeah. So that means the president and the state house can run roughshod over people and do whatever they want. But there's no justification to give $340 million to the vice president's office. I mean, it's so ridiculous when you think about it. This is a ceremonial position. Ceremonial. He just deputizes the president. That's what he does, right? There's no justification for it. Like, really none. And if you look at our debt, it's not getting any better. So the question is, we have a bloated bureaucratic administration. So they take that in the name of the people with nothing to show for it. So with all of this money, what do they have to show for it? Is education much better than it was in 2017? That's very debatable.
Yeah.
Are we healthier than before? I think that's debatable too.
Yeah.
Right? Do we have more jobs? Good paying jobs? No. So all of these things combined, what is the purpose of even having this state? It's a radical question to ask.
Yeah.
What is the government doing for the people?
The structures are there. The structures are there. The quality is not there. I think
we are the template country. Gambia is a template country, right? We have an office for everything. We have legislation, rules, and policies for everything. By the way, it's not like we don't lack policy. We don't like all these things. It's the implementation and the measurement of the impact of these things and implementing these things. And I think this is where the problem is. And I think any serious government should start thinking about this. But again, the government people are not petitioning the state to do any better. So there's no reason for the state to do any different. And come 2026, Barrow might just, especially with Dabo in the fringes, might just walk right past them and go back to Marina Parade, with a pretty nice victory. Something gotta give, man.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been fun, Sulayman. Thank you so very much for hopping on really quick for us to have this really, interesting chat about current affairs in the Gambia. Like I always say, Sol will always be back once a month, twice a month, depending on what's happening. So, stick around. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also our Facebook, and also share, this live as well. But until then, Sulayman, thank you so much for coming once again.
All right, so long, brother. Talk to you later.
Yep, have a good one.
Bye-bye. All right, you too.